welcome to another episode of the Influential Nonprofit. I am so excited today because, when I do these podcasts, I meet new best friends everywhere I go. And Steven Screen is my new best friend because we had a great conversation the other day about how feelings affect our fundraising. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm so excited because we are truly kindred spirits. So I know you're going to have a ton of wisdom to share, right in line with like what I do and what you wound up doing sort of surprisingly. And we'll talk about that. Um, Hi, Stephen. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Marianne.
Okay, you given me the best bio because I tell people a short intro, and you actually gave me a short intro. You're second generation data driven fundraiser. You're winner of the direct mail package of the year. Nice. That's cool. And gifted at summarizing complex concepts and a fundraising evangelist and apologist. And I'm so happy to have you to have this conversation because I think it's really going to serve people. Before we get into that, I always start with the same question. So tell me something you're proud of that you don't get to brag about a lot.
That's a that's a good question. I would say that I am proud of the emotional resilience to keep helping new fundraisers who are asking the same questions that I have been hearing for a very long time at this point.
Sure.
And that I'm pleased that I'm still able to do my best to be sort of warm and engaging and helpful, and not, as I've seen with some older fundraisers, just face palming and annoyed that people still don't get this question. Uh,
Right.
right. And so,
Yeah.
because new people, they want to be warmly welcomed and made part of this great community.
And the fact that they have a question is the gift, right?
Amen.
I'm gonna liken it to this when people say, "Oh, I get so frustrated when somebody doesn't know who my organization is or what my organization is. They never heard of us." And I'm like, "Well, you can tell yourself a different story, which is, hey, what an opportunity to connect with somebody." And I mean, do they really need to know who you are? That they may
Yep.
not be that that they may not be the person for you, but it's like, so it's the story you tell yourself, which is, there's always, and thank God there's always new people, or we wouldn't really have much to do.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yeah, and I love that it is, for me it is always just a gift to be able to shift somebody's perspective. And also, what I'm hearing is in your statement is there some chronic things that happen over and over again. So, what do you see people coming to you with time and time again that would make somebody else slap their head on their forehead, but not you?
Yeah, I guess I would say it's the emotional hangups that people have around asking for money,
Okay.
and the to use that the this I got the story we tell ourselves. I got that framing from Brene Brown.
Mm-hmm.
To use the stories that they tell themselves about fundraising are often sort of out of date or untrue, and they limit the organization because it's telling itself a story that isn't particularly effective.
Right. Right. And we are a composition of the stories that we tell ourselves. And most stories were implanted us in childhood, by someone else's belief system that we just adapted to ourselves, right? And a lot of those stories are around money and also the vulnerability of asking for help, the possibility of being rejected. That's what I call the trifecta, like the fundraising trifecta of pain, like being
Yep.
vulnerable, right? And nonprofits, we're the helpers, we're the solvers, we're the fixers. So asking somebody else for help can feel really, it can really difficult. So what you're seeing is that people are avoiding, like, maybe really serving their organization at a higher level because of these stories. Like, I would just love to give an example.
Sure. Well, let's see. So I think a lot about vulnerability too, and so I mean, I believe that both people and organizations have egos.
Sure.
We as humans and organizations don't, our egos do not like being vulnerable. We do
Yep.
not like asking for help as if we need it. We like asking people to help us in our success. That in at least in direct response fundraising, where we're sending out letters and emails to people, or we're doing radio or TV, when there is no vulnerability, there are fewer gifts because
Yes.
it sounds like you've got everything taken care of. We've helped everybody we've come across, but wouldn't your partnership be lovely? And that just doesn't work as well as, hey, we haven't helped everybody. In the next couple of months, some things need to happen that your funding would be really helpful with. Would you help fund this good work? That vulnerability of saying we don't have everything taken care of, your help is needed, works great in fundraising.
Yeah. Um, so as you know, I coach and train people in influence, and I teach this course called Up Level Your Influence. And one of the tenets of the course is the most powerful person in the room is the most vulnerable.
Mhm.
And when you allow yourself to speak your truths, right? Because our vulnerability is mired in the guilt and shame, right? And so we don't want people to see that side of us. Then um but when we model that, right, then we allow other people. So not only I feel like, are you serving your organization, you're allowing other people to, right, accept their imperfections or their vulnerabilities and all that. I
Yeah.
do think that I've been in this business a long time, right? 1992, and there was decades where we had to show this perfect image, right? The shine and and you know what I mean? We everything was perfect. We didn't want to show any cracks, lest a donor like doubt or get upset. And that was and now I think we've really evolved in the relationship building to be like, hey, this is what's happening. You know, like, because like, who would want a friend? Like, if I sat, I had lunch, and every time I saw you, all you told me was how great everything was and how perfect you were. And at the end, you asked me for money. Or somebody
Yeah.
asked me for like, wait, what?
No,
This is
that's
not a relationship.
yep. The way I tell that same story is that most nonprofits are the slightly tipsy person of the opposite gender who traps you at a party, tells you all about themselves, and then at the very end gets this moment of self-realization and says, "Oh, enough about me. Would you like to partner with me?"
Right.
And that is not a good exchange. That's
It is
not a
not.
relationship. And that's one of the reasons people are so fearful about sending out fundraising. It's because their fundraising has no relationship. It's only about them. And we
Yes.
know as humans at some level that that's selfish and not that interesting to others. And so
Right.
we get but we haven't been, uh, there isn't enough of a model of real relationship-based fundraising in our sector. It's a little bit of a lost art.
It is. Or I don't know if it's a lost art because I don't think it was ever really like something we had that we lost. I just think
Hmm.
we were taught these. I'm just going to say this. I would say
Yep.
these are more capitalistic, sales driven principles of like maybe, right, where this is about relationship building. And I say it all the time, relationship first, the money will follow. Like when you focus on the relationship, giving value, adding value to people's lives, the money will follow, the money will come. Not that you don't have to ask for what you want. That's not what I'm saying. But when we focus on just the real work of relationship building, of honest, authentic, aligned relationships, the money comes, and it's the transactional piece. And I think that's what makes people feel icky because they don't think there's another way to do it. They don't think there's a more authentic way to do it.
Yep. Yep. That's right. That's right. I
So
was
how do
very lucky.
so
Sorry, go
at
ahead.
go no at Better Fundraising, like how do you work with clients? How do you help clients, the people that you work with really get to that next level, move through their stories, their fears to actually raise more money, be more impactful?
Let's see. There are two main parts to that. Number one, we have sort of deep experience in fundraising for large and small organizations. So we're pretty good at identifying the next tactics and strategies that an organization at some particular level needs to level up, to move to the next level. That's one part. It's just sort of knowing the things that you do, or that successful organizations at that level tend to do to level up. The second thing is sort of the emotional intelligence to know that much of what we do is helping people be comfortable with new ways of fundraising, new messaging, new programming, new approaches. And there's a theory of change thing that happens there where people don't just go, oh, yes, I'm now going to do it that way. there is real work to get people to open up to new ideas and then try them.
Yeah. And I think, well, you were saying before that you were surprised how much of your work is like coaching and guiding people on how to adopt these strategies, right? Because it's the
Mhm.
mindset and the strategy that work together. And that's why I moved in to do what I do, because that's what I saw was really missing. The strategy, the to right, oh, here, do that. Okay, but then actually implementing it can bring up a lot of stuff for people. And they don't, and
Absolutely.
they might not even be conscious of it. This is not like they're actively consciously sabotaging anything. There's just a resistance. And they're not even realizing A, they're in resistance, or B, where it comes from, or that it's even impacting anything.
Yep, that's right. And the more and more of my work is being in conversations with those people experiencing resistance and saying, let's talk about this. Why does this make you uncomfortable? Can I share a couple other perspectives? Can I share some data? Um,
Right,
that's a
right,
lot of what we do.
right. And I also think that they're they're the biggest issue is the willingness to do that, right? To step into that discomfort and try something new and to even just explore it, right? Because when I look for people that I want to work with, I look for somebody who's like ready to do the work, right? Like, and not just the strategy work, the whole work, you know. And one of the reasons I don't call myself a consultant is because that I am a coach and a trainer and a guide. I don't call myself a consultant because one of the reasons is the expectation of consultancy is, hey, we have money, right? And here's this RFP that we're going to share with you that all the ways we're sick or we're broken. How much would it cost you to fix us? Or how much would it cost us, how much would you want to fix us? Like that model of, hey, we're broken, or we need help. What would it cost? And then when you're paying somebody money, there is a sense of like absolution. Well, I don't have to worry about fundraising because I'm paying Steve to do it. So
Yep.
right, I can abdicate myself from that responsibility because that's your responsibility now. And where we know that when you're working with anybody, coach, consultant, anybody, that we that if you're hiring somebody, you want to be 100% committed to the outcomes that you want, and you're just looking for a partner to help you get there. That's a very different perspective.
Yep. Well, similarly, we think of ourselves as Sherpas. We are walking up the mountain with you, but you still have to walk up the mountain
Mm-hmm.
for our clients, and they bear some responsibility. And and frankly, that idea works its way into. It's not that it works its way. It is part of fundraising, where most nonprofits don't give their donors any responsibility. The nonprofits in their messaging take on all the responsibility on of their own, and they say, "We are working on this. This is our work. Will you support us?" And the share, it's not so much sharing of responsibility, it's the recognizing that a donor is a partner in this work and they bear just as much responsibility for working on this thing as we do,
Mm-hmm.
and giving them their chance to take their responsibility as opposed to, and that means bold, clear asks. That means you care about the penguins. Your gift right now will help them, or people with PTSD, or literacy in our community, and having to sort of clearly say what's happening so that we can all take responsibility together and asking them to take action now. It's the same principle, just sort of manifested differently.
Gosh, I never thought of it that way. That is really good. Right. So what, like if a donor oh, I give you money, so I don't have to worry about the penguins because, you know, the penguin people have got the penguins, but it's actually the same, like it's all part of a vision, a change that we're all creating together, right?
Yes, yeah,
I
and
won't
that's where organization-centric fundraising falls down, because they think they are doing the work and it's them that matters, but it's not. That is a small part of the whole system where we all bear responsibility and we all get credit for helping when we do. So it's a bigger understanding of fundraising that allows you to tap into the donor's deep needs to make differences about things they care about.
Yeah. Okay, I want to ask you about something.
Tim.
Because I have philosophies on this. You probably have philosophies that gets backed up with data that I don't have. So what I feel like we're moving away from that could be limiting is this, because I think it's a little transactional. It's like, if you give us $200, we're gonna like buy this many meals, right? Or it can, serve this many penguins or whatever. I love the
Yep.
penguin thing because it's so specific. Okay. And or is it that you are investing in creating something, right? Like together we are creating something. It like the idea of
Hmm.
making asks that are based more in the future, not in a small reaction to a problem. Now I understand why people do that, right? It feels very tangible, but also I feel like we're training our donors to think in a small limited payoff way when really what I want is to connect with donors in a more partner visionary way. Laying that out
Hmm.
there. Your thoughts.
Yep. Um, I warmly, completely disagree.
Okay.
Uh,
Good.
yeah.
Yay.
Here's what I think about it. The your $200 feeds 200 penguins.
Right.
Let's use that as an example. That specificity makes an organization and its fundraising more accessible and inclusive
Okay.
because the for mass donors out there, I have to explain like three things here, but I believe the thinking is incredibly sound. First thing, for mass donors out there, they don't know how much it costs to to feed a penguin. They don't even know that penguins are hungry. They don't know about the need or about how you work, and or they don't even think about it very much. So
Gotcha.
to engage those people, we, as a generous act, make our fundraising as accessible and inclusive as possible so that someone with just 5 seconds of attention and $200 can make a difference and feel good about it.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, so that's thing number one. Thing number two, smart organizations use their mass donor fundraising as a major donor identification system.
Okay.
They are looking at their responses to see, hey, that person usually gives $50, but they just gave $250. Maybe I'm going to call them. Maybe I'm going to move them up to a mid donor program and I'm going to start to spend more time and money on them. And I'm going to create more engaging fundraising that gives them chances to go even deeper. And then, as a person moves their way up through an organization's fundraising tactics, then a select few will choose to have that visionary, collaborative partnership conversation. But if we only talk about visionary, collaborative partnership conversations, we create inaccessible fundraising to everybody else. And it doesn't work as well either. The
Okay.
data on that is all incredibly clear.
Okay. So, for instance, but if even if I had $200 to spend,
Mhm.
I'm not spending that investing in a vision. That's
Correct.
what you're saying. Okay.
Because I'm a sort of lifer in fundraising, like you.
Yeah.
I started in 1993. We used to call first gifts emotional accidents.
Okay.
One of the biggest problems in fundraising is the misinterpretation of a gift by
I 100%
nonprofits.
agree.
Right? So they think, oh, we've got another fan. Oh, this person is really on board with our mission. It's like, no, no, no. This person had an emotional accident. The organization happened to talk about a thing that the donor cares about, and they put their money where their values are. That's all that happened. And now the organization has this opportunity to deepen the donor's interaction with the organization, to explain more about their work, to grow towards that hopeful, uh, mission driven, collaborative partnership conversation that ideally ends in a legacy gift.
Right.
But it starts with an emotional
Emotional
accident
accident.
and then not misinterpreting that.
Right. Okay, I want to dive into that, but I want to summarize this
Sure.
point. So what I've heard you say, and I'm so glad I asked that question.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
Because, and you most respectfully completely disagree. So
Yep.
that maybe it's for the smaller gifts, it feels more inclusive to have a smaller dollar understanding of what the impact would be. But then
Mhm.
as somebody grows in their relationship, they want that partner, right? You're becoming a stronger partnership. And in that partnership, right? It's more about the vision, it's creating a future, it's things like that, right?
For some
For some,
donors,
right? Yeah.
for some.
But
So
but
so
but
say
looking at it like a journey. Not everybody's going to be with you all along the journey, but there is a journey. And you
there's a journey, and again, for some, there are some very
right for
wealthy
some.
people who can give $50,000 gifts without thinking of it, and they don't want to be on the journey with you. They just want to give you $50,000
Sure.
for whatever their own values are, and so you just want to have both of these types of people in mind
Yeah.
as a not because the nonprofit wanting everyone to sort of go on this journey in a particular way to believe a particular thing is exclusive.
Right.
It is exclusive. It makes people only do things the way the nonprofit wants to do them. And I don't think we should make charity only available to people who think like that.
Yes. So I was doing a workshop the other day, and this woman said, "Oh, I want to get people to get tours, and no one wants to take a tour." I'm like, "Okay, like that's your need, not their need. Maybe
Yep.
they're fine with their right. Like, oh, I want them to get to know the relationship better or the organization better." I'm like,
Mhm.
well, whose need is that? Is that your need or is that their need?
Exactly right.
Right. And so some people may be fine just writing that $50,000 check. They're
Mhm.
good. Everything's good. Right.
Mhm.
And then, so I always would say, like, we love people who they are, not who we want them to be. Or, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But
Yep.
if they would come, but letting them know your job as a fundraiser is letting them know, hey, if you need anything, I'm here. Right. If you're like, but for me, it's the, I hear what you're saying. It's like the assumption that we're all going to move down this path, right? But and also it's like, hey, different people may be on different journeys, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yep. So, and it's also just a recognition that at the moment of the give or not give decision,
Mhm.
usually the thing that has the highest point of leverage is the donor's own story and values and preferences.
Yes.
And so it's just living there more than living with our values and preferences, which is a selfless, generous act that we do on behalf of our beneficiaries.
Right. That's what I call the philanthropic heart, right? Why we give is not based on your marketing or your messaging. It's based on our values wanting to be, right, our putting our values into action. And it just so happens that it aligns with your values, right?
Yeah.
I want to go back to the happy emotional accident because I think this is really important. I'm doing a workshop tomorrow on like stopping the fundraising booty call. Right? People are like,
Yep.
if you ask for something, like, hey,
Yep.
what's up? You
Yep.
need any kid, right? But one of the things is like we don't really look at where we got the first gift. So let's say, in St. Louis, a big thing here is trivia nights. Everybody, I love trivia nights, so I'm good with this. And
Yep.
and you get a gym and you have tables of 10 and you do 10 rounds of trivia and you make a bunch of money. And people come to the trivia and they think, oh, you came to our trivia and now we're going to put you on our donor base, right?
Mhm.
Now you're a part of our community. I may go to that trivia, like my niece's school, she's an English teacher, had a trivia. This is a school in my neighborhood. It's a really great asset in our community. Like I might find alignment with that cause, but mostly I was there to support my niece, my family, right?
Yes.
So we don't really look at why, like sometimes you invite me to an event and I'm going to be a good participant. Okay. Because I like you and right. And I want to support you and your cause. My friend Rachel used to be the one of the spokesperson like 7 or 8 years for Go Red for Women. She had a heart attack after giving birth.
Mm.
She's like this beautiful thing. And they put her on all the billboards and she was all into it. So I was into it because she was into it. Right. But then when she kind of arced out of that, I arced out of it because I not that there's anything wrong with Go Red for Women or any
No.
heart association. That just wasn't in my heart. I was supporting
Right.
her. So I think
Yep.
we often don't look at how did this gift come to us in the first place? Because that emotional accident, that may just be
Hmm.
the end of the relationship. Or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was just doing it because of you, or I come every year because of you, but it doesn't go any farther than that.
Yeah. Well, this is where my background, which is sort of deep in data, was incredibly helpful. Because, for instance, we would look at donor retention rates by method of acquisition.
Yes,
Okay. So you get a peer-to-peer donor. Okay. The chances of them giving you a second gift are between 3 and 5%.
yes,
Great. You get an event donor. Chances of them giving you a second gift are around 9%. You get a radio donor. The chances of them giving a second gift are, 17 to 19%. Direct mail donors different. TV's donors different. Monthly donors are different. All of those things give you context around the donor's relationship with the organization or whatever brought them to that moment, be it peer-to-peer, an event, your friend. So
hmm
yeah, those things matter like crazy. The context and motivation for what resulted in that gift play a huge role in what happens next.
right. And also the expectation. So, for instance, I go to this event every year. It's called Hope in a Handbag. I came up with that name, by the way.
Yeah.
And that was a wild committee meeting because I did not know, but they all drink wine. So I'm facilitating this brainstorm, and these ladies are looped. Anyway, so Hope in a Handbag. But what they found is at only really 3 to 5% of the people who come to Hope in a Handbag, which is like all these donated designer handbags, right? So there's like 300 women,
Yep.
a ballroom, bars, and handbags, right? And some of them, what I do love about this event is it is inclusive. You have $25 bags to $5,000 bags, right? Like
Love
this,
it.
right? Like really, and it's very fun. There's a DJ. They keep it upbeat, but it's for the Foster Adoptive Care Coalition. About three, and this stat hopefully still the same, but this is where I know this is where it was. 3 to 5% would actually give to the organization. They were there for handbags. And they were happy to do it in service of a nonprofit. But if the nonprofit said, "Hey, we're not going to do this event anymore, but we gladly will it to another organization," those
Hmm.
people would still come. So they
Yep.
looked at that and they said, "Is this worth our time? Right? Is
Yep.
this worth our time?
Great
Because
question.
we know we're not going to get a lot of long-term relationships from this event." And in the end, they decided, they took a hard look at the numbers, at the data, and they decided, yes, it was, but they decided to do it every other year.
Hmm.
And because they do make a lot of money, right? Like it is I mean, they make, a good amount, like 300, something $1,000. Like, but they looked
Yeah.
at how much staff time, like what it took to put this on. Is it worth it? Because it is not going to be a donor, you know, um, driven event. And it's just not. And I think just being honest about like where people come from and
Mhm.
and then how long they're going to stay, because I'm not sure people really look at that, because they just think, "Oh, you gave to us, now you're the first gift. Why aren't we getting the second gift?" Well, most of the time you're not getting the second gift because you're not really understanding why the first gift happened, or the context of the first gift.
Yep. Yep. All true. All true.
Okay.
And all part of the massively expanding nonprofit ecosystem, right? There's a million more nonprofits than there were 30 years ago, and education hasn't kept up. And so people don't even know to look for this stuff. And I think that's part of your work
Yeah,
and part of my work is
that's part
point.
of what you're doing. Is there a place, because you said a lot of data, and I know you have a blog, I will put it in the show notes, where people can access some of this data or learn from you?
Well, let's see. There isn't a repository of all of the data that's in Stephen's head, but the blog is sort of in long form in that I'm constantly trying to share things that we've seen and the lessons you take from them.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
Um, because I think this is really helpful for people to understand, hey, okay, I went to this workshop once and they're like, "Oh yeah, I was learning how to put on a podcast, and like takes about 40 episodes to get traction in the market." And I was like,
Hmm.
40? I thought it'd be like five, but it just helped me manage my expectations, right? And I think
Yep.
that's what we're talking about. This is managing your expectations for what you could get from, an event or direct mail. Now,
Mhm.
I know you won the direct mail package of the year, so you have some
Yep.
experience in that. What, let's just talk about like how you ask and how you ask in appeal. And is the direct mail package dead? Like, let's just tell me a little bit about that.
Uh, Great. So, super deep subject that I'll just give you some highlights from. Direct
Yes.
mail is nowhere near dead, right? According to Blackbaud's 2023 study, it's either 14, I think it's 14% of all charitable donations in the United States are online. Only 14%.
Wow.
So what that says, and there's basically a demographic reason for that, is generally speaking, older people are giving more money more often than younger people. Older people are not online as much. So direct mail is thriving. All the national charities that I know of, except the ones that have topics that make their donors all younger, all have thriving direct mail programs. The ROI is incredible. So direct mail is not dead. Um, the asking in direct mail, the thinking that you do before writing a word and designing a thing is far more important than what it looks like and what you say. Um, and so that it's not that you have to write copy that's so inspirational that's going to cause the disciples to weep. It's just sort of figuring out what your donors care about and then asking them to do things that are what they care about, not what you care about, what they care about. And again,
Mm-hmm.
sort of looking at that Venn diagram overlapping thing of all the things the organization cares about and all the things the donor cares about. There's a little overlapping section called the mission match. And in that mission match is where you focus. The final thing to mention is that in general, most nonprofits focus their appeals on number one, work they have already done. And number two, the ask is to support the organization.
Okay.
So it's work that has already been done. Let me tell you a story of someone we helped 3 months ago, right? It's work
Yeah.
that's already been done. And then
Okay.
the ask is to support the organization. The appeals that raise the most money are about work that needs to be done soon and asks the donor to help fund that work. So it's a shift from the past to the future. And it's a shift of support from the organization to the work.
Mm-hmm.
And that shift right there creates massive increases in how much money you raise. In direct response, I'm not talking about a grant application. I'm not
Right.
talking about an hour-long conversation with a major donor. I'm talking about the mail, email, radio, TV.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I think that's what I was getting at before was this idea of investing in the future, investing in right something we're going to do together. Where when I was saying like at a $200 level, you're like, let's keep it more tangible and inclusive. But and also, is it possible to be tangible and inclusive about a problem that has not yet been solved, right? About something that's in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so
Mm.
I mean, just so breaking it down, um, is it possible to be inclusive about work that the organization has already done? No, because the work is already done by the organization.
Hmm.
If you want to be inclusive, you need to talk about work that you and I, the donor and me and the organization can do together.
Yeah.
So organizations are accidentally making incredibly exclusive fundraising.
And we know that's not anyone's intention, right? It's the
Absolutely right.
opposite. A
Absolutely
phrase I
right.
use a
It's
lot. My friend Amy Fazio taught me this. It's people come for the cause, they stay for the community, right? It's our of wanting
mhm,
to be part of something bigger than ourselves, feeling
yep.
connected to something bigger and greater than ourselves. That's one of our core needs, right?
Mhm,
Along with the ego and all of that. Like I think as I would say, like I would look at we are here to build a community of that is connected to a cause, right? That's building something together.
yeah. So that's that's true, but it's also a sort of there's a yes and statement, which is
Okay.
that is true for some donors.
Yeah.
And some donors would just like to give you a couple of gifts.
Yeah.
They don't need community. Some donors are super impact focused. They don't care about community. They're just trying to make some change that their church told them to make, or that their dad always emphasized, or whatever those things are. And so it really is in all of this conversation about inclusivity and exclusivity, about mission driven versus transactional, about what you're just talking about. It really is a yes and. There are other groups of donors with other motivations that we should be okay with and leave opportunities for to give, in addition to the way we want them to give.
Right. Yeah, this is such a good lesson because I really do work with people and like loving people for who they are, not who you want them to be, right? And that's the same thing. Like, hey,
Mhm.
it's okay. Like if somebody wants to be transactional, let them be transactional. That's okay.
Right,
If some
right.
like my like I just always think about my old boss Karen because she was so understated and like every people like, oh, we'll put your name on the wall. She's like, oh my God, that's the last thing I would ever want. Like, no. But there were people
Yep.
like, look, I would love my name on the wall.
Mhm.
Thank you. Like and because when you talk about the ego, like it's okay to have an ego. Like some people want that
Yeah,
and they like that. They want that notoriety. Give okay, but if not, I
fine.
want to do it subtly. Okay. And I think that is right when because one of my tenets is like when I'm a value to you, you'll be a value to me. And that's how we're value to people is
Mhm.
understanding what their needs are and meeting them instead of wanting them to meet our needs, which I think is when we get to the core of it, the model that we're working with, right? Right. When you do what I want, I will be of value to you. But the way I think it works best is when I'm of value to you, right? I understand what your needs are and I can meet them, then
Mhm.
right, then that's when you'll be of value to me in a sense of like that partnership, right? So if I'm
Yep.
constantly calling somebody who doesn't really want to take a tour, who's happy with the relationship where it is, because I need to, because I'm supposed to have this quota of getting people on tours,
Yep.
instead
Yep.
of the quota of having happy donors who are set, right? Who love the organization. I don't know. That's all I'm
Yep.
saying.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I completely believe in that principle. And what the data from direct response fundraising tells you, if you assume that gifts are a sign of delivering value into the donor's life, right?
Hmm.
If we assume that them making a gift says we've given them some value, the value that they are most interested in is not so much partnership or community or this long journey. It is making some change in the world where they know how much change they made in a really accessible way. And that those it's the again, I'm only talking about direct response here to individual donors,
Okay.
but that's the type of stuff that works the best.
Hmm.
Your $200 does this thing, and so uh, if we assume that giving a gift means we provided some value in the donor's life, those are the biggest signs of providing value when we do appeals like that. And so it is on someone else to describe how some other way of doing appeals or newsletters or whatever that isn't bringing in money is bringing in value somehow.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So and that just shows me the yes and there are different types of donors with different types of motivations, and often individual donor motivations are different than we would like them to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Woo!
Woohoo!
I learned something today.
Fun, fun. That's good. I'm on a thing to try to help people when people make their fundraising more accessible.
Uh-huh.
They increase the impact of their organization, and then they get more people on that long-term donor journey to partnership and holistic support than they want. But they have to start with a different message.
Right. Right. Okay.
So,
Um, this has been so great. My head, like I couldn't speak for a second because my head is just like spinning here. So I will mention that you do have the blog at betterfundraising.com/blog, but I'll put the link in the show notes and all that so people can find
Mhm.
it. What else other great way to connect with you? Where are you hanging out these days? Online anyway.
I don't hang out anywhere online. I am focusing our efforts on our blog, and
Okay.
that's where we try to send people.
All right. And I'll have your email, and if people want to reach out to you, they can connect with you.
Oh, great.
Now,
Thank you.
my final question is, you live on an island in Washington. I live in St. Louis. But if we ever wind up in a karaoke bar together,
Oh,
which hopefully that would be highly likely, if you ever come to Seattle, like, we wind up in a Seattle karaoke bar together or whatever. What is your go-to song?
well, first of all, I'm coming to St. Louis in 2 weeks,
You are.
so we should talk.
Okay.
Second, I've only karaokeed once in my life, and I never plan to do it again. Um, I am awful. I am awful. The very first time I did it, a friend of mine said afterwards, he said, "Do you not know what notes you are trying to hit, or are you unable to hit them?" And I think both are true. I just have a tin ear and I can't. So this is not a thing that I do. I will happily cheer you on.
That's great too. There's nothing more a karaoke singer wants than a full bar and not a lot of sweet people in the rotation. In my bio, it says I like extra large Diet Cokes, extra high heels, and short karaoke rotations. And those are three true statements about me.
That's
This has
that's
been a wonderful conversation. I am so glad you could share this, and I'm going to point everybody to your blog to continue learning from you and how to really take care
thanks.
of our donors, and no matter who they are or what it's really great. Anything else you want to say?
This is a half-formed thought, Marianne, but I will try. I think that fundraising is a gift to everybody. It's a gift to the people who make it because you have to be other-centered. It's a gift to the people who receive it because they are reminded of their responsibilities in the world. It's a cause of connection because it makes us leave whatever we were doing in that moment and remember that there are people with PTSD who are struggling, and remember that literacy is down in our county, and remember the amazing things to do that the dance troupe is doing. And there are all of these goods that happen in fundraising, and more of the goods happen if we get out of our own way and we sort of make fundraising that shares responsibility, shares credit, involves everybody, and is accessible. I think there's an incredible world for fundraising out there if we can get more people to adopt this thinking.
I love it. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to end there with this episode of the Influential Nonprofit. Like I said, if you want to connect with Stephen, Better Fundraising Company, all the links are in the show notes. Thanks again for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you for having me.